The veteran couldn't trust anyone, until Black Nurse repeated his fallen brother's last words. Donovan Ricks hadn't spoken a full sentence in 32 days. Not to the psychiatrists, not to the orderlies, not even to the young vet from Fallujah with tremors in his hands and glass in his voice. He sat by the window of room 413 at the DC, Veterans Medical Center, like a man guarding something only he could see, eyes locked on the empty lot beyond the chain-link fence, where rats moved in the corners and headlights passed like ghosts on the periphery. A notebook lay open on his lap, blank. His right thumb tapped the edge in precise intervals, like a metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4. Reset. He wasn't there for healing. He was there to listen. Because Ricks knew what no one else did, someone inside the system was tying up loose ends, and he was a very frayed piece of rope. They sent nurses, interns, shrinks with soft tones and gloved questions. He watched them the same way he'd watched insurgents outside crumbling compounds in Bamako and Tombouctou, waiting for the flicker, the offbeat, the signal that gave them away. No one passed. Then came the night nurse. She entered without knocking. Short-cropped hair, obsidian skin, her frame compact but grounded. There was nothing tentative about her. No clipboard. No small talk. She didn't even flinch when she noticed his eyes already on her, fixed and flat. "You sleep with the lights on?" she asked, flipping the switch off before he could answer. Darkness fell over the room like a lid snapping shut. Only the distant city buzz remained, like something far off, dying. He didn't move, just stared. She pulled a chair next to the bed and sat, not too close, not too far, like she understood something about perimeter, something about combat radius. "Name's Layla Cross," she said, voice low and even. "You can call me Nurse Cross, or Layla, or not at all, doesn't matter to me." Still silence. "I heard you don't talk." A pause. "But I'm not here to talk either. I'm here to watch the door, and I'm very, very good at watching doors." Something about that triggered a flicker behind his eyes. His right hand twitched. He turned his head slightly, as if recalibrating. "You're a watcher, too," she added, looking at him, not through him. "I know your kind. Watchers see first, move last." He blinked. Once, not a blink of boredom, but of memory. Then she said it. 6 words, soft, clean, delivered like a coded prayer. He said, "The signal was wrong." Ricks didn't breathe, not blink, not move. For 4 full seconds the world narrowed into a pinpoint. His throat clicked. Heart rate spiked, autonomic, involuntary, total. And then he stood up with absolute calm, dragging the chair across the room and slamming it against the far wall. "Who the fuck are you?" The words came out like bone splinters. The door opened fast, 2 security staff flanking a doctor. One reached for a taser. Layla didn't move. "Step back from the patient. Nurse Cross?" "He's not the threat," she said coldly. "The threat is whoever put a dead man's last words in my mouth." That stopped the room cold. Even the doctor hesitated. Ricks stood trembling, eyes not on the staff but on Layla. "Everyone out," she said. "He's not done yet." The staff didn't like it, but the VA was political and she carried a different kind of weight. Eventually, the door closed again. Silence settled back. Ricks sat. "You were there," he said, more gravel than voice. "Molly, Op Saber Angel, 3rd group." Layla didn't nod, didn't confirm, just studied him. "I was with him when he died," she said. "Staff Sergeant Elliot Carver, your second in command, your brother in everything but blood." He never told anyone that line, Ricks rasped. Not in the AAR, not even to command. That signal cost us everything. Who gave it to you? "I was there," she said again. "But I wasn't supposed to be." He leaned forward, hand on his knee, eyes cutting through her like wire. "They said there were 5 of us in that village, but only 4 were listed. You're the ghost." She didn't deny it. He looked down at his hands. They've been killing us. I know. Why now? Because one of us is still alive. A long pause. The heat in the room seemed to thicken. And he's not on paper, she said, like me, like you wish you were. Ricks wiped a hand down his face, fingers digging into his eyes. When he looked back at her, his voice was low. You gave the wrong signal. I know, she said. No defense. Just wait. I live with it. I hear his last breath when I close my eyes. He stood, walked to the window, looked out, down, beyond. I should kill you. You already did, she said, the second they handed you that debrief folder and lied to your face. A long silence, the kind that stretched but didn't break. Then Ricks turned back to her. And for the first time in 32 days, there was something in his face that wasn't dead. You said someone's still alive. Who? Layla's eyes didn't waver. The one who sent the order, the one neither of us were supposed to remember. She handed him a name, scribbled on a folded slip of gauze. No rank, no branch. Just a name that made Ricks's jaw tighten. Is this real? He asked. Layla stood. If it's not, we're already dead. She walked to the door, opened it. Before stepping out, she said, I didn't come to heal you. I came because I think we're the last two who remember. She closed the door behind her. Ricks stood alone in the dark, but this time he wasn't watching the parking lot. He was watching the door. The next morning, the VA was wrapped in antiseptic calm. Linoleum floors scrubbed down to bone. Wheelchairs gliding like ghosts, hushed orders passed between nurses, as if volume itself could trigger trauma. Ricks sat in the same place, back to the wall, eyes to the door. But something had shifted, a new fracture behind his stare, jagged and alive. The slip of gauze lay folded once in his palm, name written in block letters, smudged from the sweat of clenched fists. Cole Vanden. Not a name he recognized, not from Molly, not from any file he'd ever seen. Which made it worse. Ghost names didn't come out of nowhere. They were carved out of systems and redacted into silence. At 09:30, he requested a phone call. At 09:31, red flags pinged. Within 6 minutes, 2 staffers in jackets that didn't quite fit right appeared at his door. Pressing smiles, flat eyes. Mr. Ricks, good morning. Heard you wanted to make a call? He didn't answer, just watched how the shorter one's hand hovered near the badge on his belt, where something cold and metallic shaped the fabric. I changed my mind, Ricks said. I'm not feeling very social. Of course, the tall one replied, too quick. Let us know if that changes. He closed the door behind them. Ricks stared after them for a long time. Then he unfolded the gauze again. Read the name. Committed it to bone. That night Layla didn't come. Not during vitals. Not during meds. Not even for final lights out. Instead, a replacement nurse wheeled in with nervous hands and a too loud laugh. She asked Ricks how he was sleeping. He didn't answer. She offered warm milk. He declined. She didn't ask again. Once she left, he waited. 40 minutes. 50. Then, at 01:07, a quiet knock on the bathroom wall. 3 taps. Pause. 2 more. Ricks stood slowly, pressed his ear against the tile. Cross? He said. Silence. Then the panel above the sink slid back, revealing not Layla, but a blue eye behind a cracked mirror. Put your shoes on, we've got 10 minutes, her voice whispered. He didn't hesitate. Combat boots pulled on bare feet, no socks, t-shirt, sweatpants. His movements were military clean, no wasted motion. He slipped out through the wall into a utility shaft that reeked of bleach and something older. Something dead. Layla was waiting 2 levels down in a corner near a defunct service elevator. She wore civilian scrubs and a stolen badge. Her eyes scanned constantly, never resting. You're getting slow, she said. You're getting reckless. She handed him a burner phone, already unlocked. 1 number was saved. The contact name read simply, CV. I ran the name, Layla said. Cole Vanden doesn't exist in any VA registry, active duty files, or post-op discharge logs. Then how do you know it's real? She looked at him. Because I was ordered to sign off on a medevac for that name in 2016. Right after Molly. Rick stared at the phone like it might bite him. He didn't go through Ramstein, she continued. Didn't pass through any NATO corridor. He was taken to a site listed only as Echo Protocol. Ever heard of it? He had. Every Tier 1 operator had. Echo Protocol wasn't a place. It was a threat. A whispered fate used by command to silence insubordination. You go dark. You don't come back. No records, no medals, no burial flag. Just static in a file. I think he's alive, she said. And I think he's the reason we're being hunted. Ricks pocketed the phone. Where's the source file? She handed over a USB drive. Old school, rubber casing, scratched. He tucked it into the elastic of his waistband. You trust it? He asked. No, she said, but I trust you more than whoever's coming next. A long beat. He looked at her, really looked, in a way he hadn't since she said Carver's last words. And in her eyes, he didn't see manipulation. He saw weight, guilt, history. You were more than a medic, he said. I was an asset, she replied, embedded under cover of humanitarian clearance. My badge said Red Cross, but my orders came in a different envelope. And your orders that day? To verify target kill, identify witnesses, coordinate site suppression. His jaw clenched. You mean bodies. I mean you. They moved in silence through the sublevels of the hospital, past boiler rooms, and old operating wings shuttered after the funding dried up. They emerged through a service hatch behind a shuttered maintenance truck. No alarms, no motion sensors, just outdated infrastructure and the belief no one would dig that deep. Once in the shadows, Ricks turned to her. Why help me? She hesitated, then answered with the kind of honesty that only comes from something long buried and unhealed. Because I've watched this machine chew up people like you for years. I stitched bodies that didn't deserve to die and kept silent about things that scream in my head every night. But you didn't fold. You didn't forget. And they hate that. He nodded once. Then something behind her moved. Fast. A blur. Dark coat. Glint of steel. Ricks shoved her down, pivoted hard. A suppressor hissed. The round cracked concrete inches from her head. Ricks was already on his feet, hands like weapons. 1, 2, 3 strikes. Combat fast, joint breaks. No hesitation. The attacker dropped, neck twisted, face still masked. Layla stared up at him, breathing hard. They found us. No, he said, kneeling to strip the body. They were already here. This was just a test to see if we'd run. In the attacker's vest, no ID, no tags, but something more telling. A patch inside the inner seam. An eye, surrounded by 4 digits, E724. Ricks stepped back. Echo team. Layla nodded grimly. That means Cole Vanden's not just alive, Ricks said. He's command. She didn't argue. Then we need to find him, she said. Ricks looked out into the fog-drenched city. Somewhere out there was the man who erased their mission. The man who started the kill order. The man who sent 6 words into the mouth of a woman who should have died on foreign soil. I'll need gear, he said. You'll need more than that. She handed him a set of keys. Her apartment. Safe house. Maybe a trap. Maybe a sanctuary. Either way, Ricks was in motion now, and once men like him moved, they didn't stop until someone bled. The first rule Ricks learned in war was simple. When people start dying quietly, it's never random. It's a cleanup. And cleanup meant someone was hiding something worth killing for. 2 days after escaping the hospital, he stood in the cold wash of fluorescent light inside a government morgue, watching a dead man's fingers curl in rigor mortis. "Third one in 2 months," Layla said, standing beside him. "All classified under PTSD-related suicide. All from your original Mali unit." Ricks didn't speak. He just stared at the body, Staff Sergeant Nathan Juneau, former Team Recon, smart, paranoid, obsessed with keeping go bags and encrypted journals. Dead now. Wrist slashed, but wrong. Too clean. Too neat. The edges of the cut were sharp, purposeful. No hesitation marks, no torn skin from flinching. The kind of cut you got from someone else holding the blade. "This was execution," Rick said. Layla nodded once, then opened the manila envelope she'd pulled from the morgue's intake desk, illegally, quietly. Inside were 3 crime scene photos, 1 incident report, and a sealed toxicology sheet marked pending. She slid the photos toward Rick's. "Look at the second one." He did. A cluttered desk, blood pooled beneath a forearm. But behind the body, barely visible in the corner of the frame, was a small mirror. On it, a single word scrawled in red marker. Echo. Rick stared at it until the air felt thin. "Do we know who processed him?" Layla checked the log. Name says G. Reardon, night tech. Works 3 days a week, then disappears off the grid. Ricks took a photo of the mirror on his burner phone. "We need to talk to him." "He won't be easy to find." "Then we find someone easier." By nightfall, they were parked in a borrowed car 3 blocks from a bar frequented by ex-military, deep in the armpit of Arlington. Half VFW hall, half dive bar, the kind of place where no one wore their patches, but everyone remembered who bled where. Inside, the air was heavy with beer breath and long silences. Rick scanned the room once, noting exits, sightlines, weapons carried but not shown. Layla walked a half-step behind him, not in submission but in rhythm. They approached a man seated alone in a booth. Mid-40s, skin like old leather, badge clipped inside his coat like a half-kept secret. His name was Tomas Brenner, ex-Army Intel, now DoD liaison for civilian reconsolidation. Fancy term for data sweeps and burial paperwork. Rick sat across from him. Brenner didn't flinch. "Well, shit," he said. "They told me you were dead." "They tell a lot of people a lot of things," Ricks replied. Layla remained standing. Brenner's eyes flicked to her, noting the way she scanned the room before settling her focus. "You the nurse." "Her." Layla didn't answer. Ricks leaned in. 3 dead men from my team. 1 word on a mirror. Echo. I need access to the Central DoD case archive for non-declared ops between May and July 2016. West Africa Theater. Unnamed casualties. Brenner sipped his drink. "That's restricted 6 levels above me. Don't care. I need the access, or I start asking louder. You're not supposed to be walking free, Ricks." "You think I walked out the front door?" Brenner hesitated, then tapped twice on the table, the way you would if you were thinking through how many people you were willing to betray in a single sitting. "I give you access," he said slowly, "and you pull a single name that doesn't belong anywhere, you'll trigger flags. Triggers I can't shut off. You understand what I'm saying?" "I understand we're already burned," Ricks said. "I'm just trying to die, knowing why." That landed hard. Brenner slid a flash drive across the table. 1 access window. 40 minutes. Once it closes, you're cut out. Ricks pocketed it. "Appreciate it." Brenner caught his wrist. "For what it's worth, I always figured Molly wasn't what they said it was. Just didn't want to end up like Carver." Ricks froze. "You knew him?" Brenner didn't blink. "We served together, different teams, but same theater. Good man." Rick stood. "He died for the wrong reasons." Brenner nodded. "They all do." They drove to a hotel on the edge of Capitol Hill. Burner laptops, scramblers, signal jammers. Ricks plugged in the drive. Layla monitored comms. Once inside, the system pulsed with warnings. Redacted files, restricted fields, empty entries that should have contained names but were blank placeholders. Then he found it. 1 file, encrypted, designated Echo 724 Alpha. Ricks entered Carver's old passcode. Nothing. Then he tried the last word Carver said in that village. Signal. Access granted. Inside the file, A black and white satellite photo. Grainy, degraded. 5 figures moving through a village square. 3 circled in red. One of them, Ricks. Another, Carver. The third, unidentified. But the file had a name. Vanden Cole, Operative Class Alpha, status, deceased, provisional. Ricks froze. Provisional? Layla leaned over. Means they never confirmed the body. Could have been staged. Could have been reassigned. He clicked further. Found a secondary folder. Encrypted messages. One dated 2 days before the Mali op. Sent from a private network to an undisclosed recipient. The message read, "Secondary asset on site. Nurse cleared for embedded protocol. Verify last words match before extraction." Ricks looked at Layla. Her face went pale. "That message was about me. They cleared you to be a witness. A fucking trigger. They planned for someone to die." She backed away, horror in her eyes. "They used me." "No," Ricks said, standing. "They used both of us." Suddenly the screen glitched. A second message appeared. Live feed. Typing in real time. "You shouldn't be here." The screen went black. Then the laptop exploded in a soft electrical pop. Sparks. Smoke. Power down. The drive was fried. Ricks stood over it. Layla stared at the smoking mess. "That was a trace lock. We just lit up on someone's board." Ricks nodded slowly, and then, quietly, he said, "We need to find Cole Vanden." The suspension hit Layla by 600. A formal notice, printed on VA letterhead but unsigned. No warning, no internal hearing, just a one-line justification stamped in red. Patient boundary violation. Pending review. It was the kind of bureaucratic hit that didn't come from HR. It came from somewhere higher, somewhere darker. No appeals, no options, no trace. She didn't go home. Instead, she took a detour into the system that trained her to be invisible. By mid-morning, Ricks was in a parking garage 4 floors underground, pacing in front of an aging vending machine that hadn't worked since the Bush administration. His burner phone buzzed once, then died again. The SIM was fried from the laptop trace. No contacts. No fallback. He checked his watch. Layla was late. She never ran late. Footsteps echoed from the far ramp. Controlled pace. Familiar gait. Ricks exhaled as she came into view. Hood up, surgical mask on. Clothes different, but posture unmistakable. Combat calm. War built. "We've got problems," she said. "Bigger than being hunted? They just buried me professionally." Ricks clenched his jaw. "Means you're getting too close." "Means we both are." She handed him a fresh USB. This one wrapped in foil, cold from refrigeration. "I went back into the old records," she said. "Not digital, paper. Storage rooms. The shit nobody wants to scan." Ricks took it. "What am I looking at?" "Blood work," she said. "From Mali. Every operator, asset, and ghost tagged at the site. Including you. Including me." He raised an eyebrow. "Why would they keep that?" "They didn't. I did." Ricks plugged the drive into a clean laptop they'd set up off-grid. No Wi-Fi, no ports beyond power and HDMI. He opened the files. 24 names, redacted identifiers, lab results. Ricks scrolled past elevated white counts, injury notations, tissue markers. Then he saw it. One sample flagged with a string of unfamiliar genetic tags, more than just blood typing. This wasn't routine combat screening. This was DNA classification. Operative tag, CV blood type, O genetic class. Variant E7, Ricks muttered. "That's the designation we found on the hit team patch." Layla nodded. Echo 7 is a deep class genetics flag used by DARPA. Biocoded assets. People with certain anomalies. Ricks stiffened. Anomalies. Layla took a breath. Psychological thresholds. Neural chemistry. Pain tolerance off the scale. Candidates for extreme conditioning. People who don't break the same way we do. He scrolled back to his own file. Standard. Nothing flagged. He scrolled to Layla's. Standard, accept. A second note buried in the metadata. Subject has residual trace exposure to E7V compound. Status: asymptomatic. Clearance level adjusted to blue restricted. He looked up at her. What the hell is the E7V compound? She didn't meet his eyes. I didn't know then. They ran a field test before the Mali op. Used local medics to administer vaccines they said were anti-malaria. But it was a prototype neuroadaptive agent. E7V, experimental, unstable. You were exposed? They used me to test side effects, monitored me like a lab rat. And Carver. No record of exposure, but Cole Vanden, he was the delivery system, the prototype asset. Rick sat back, breath shallow. They designed him, he said, more like they broke him open and rewired what was left, and then sent him to kill us. No, she said quietly. They sent him to watch, to evaluate if E7V could survive a live op. The ambush in Mali wasn't about extraction. It was about observation under live-fire conditions. A long silence hung between them. He didn't die, Rick said finally. They pulled him out, reclassified him, turned him into whatever Echo 724 is. And now he's cleaning up. Not him, Rick said. The people above him. Cole's just the match. Someone else struck it. Layla reached into her coat and pulled out a second envelope. I found a contact, she said. Someone who processed the transfer orders for Vanden after Mali. He went dark 2 years ago, off-grid, but he left behind a storage unit in Baltimore. You sure it's clean? No, she said, but if he left anything, it's there. The unit was deep in industrial wasteland, chain-link fences, rusted signage, and stray dogs that watched but didn't bark. They entered using a copied keycard from the original lease records. No cameras, no alarms. The inside smelled of dust, rubber, and machine oil. Everything was neatly arranged, too neatly, like someone meant it to be found. Files, a laptop sealed in foil, and photos. Hundreds of printed photos, grayscale, time-stamped. Surveillance shots, men in uniform, women in labs, corpses. And in the center of it all, pinned to a corkboard, a map. West Africa, Mali, red pins. Then a flight path, Germany, Iceland, Alaska, and finally, Idaho. Rix narrowed his eyes. What's in Idaho? Layla stepped closer. Nothing. That's exactly why they'd build there. He pulled one photo from the board. It was faded, but clear enough. A man strapped to a gurney, restrained at the neck, arms, and ankles. Shaved head, tubes in the veins, face bloated, but unmistakable. Cole Vanden. Alive, eyes wide open, staring right at the lens, and smiling. Rix felt his pulse spike. He was never meant to die, he said. He was meant to evolve. Layla touched his shoulder. I think the file in Idaho holds everything, she said. The orders, the experiments, maybe even Vanden himself. Rix stared at the map again, then at the coded blood tags, at the bodies stacking up, and he understood the weight of what they were carrying now. It wasn't about revenge, or even survival. It was about exposure, because the people behind this weren't cleaning up an op. They were perfecting a weapon, one that looked human, bled human, but wasn't. The first explosion was small, targeted, surgical, a waste disposal chute on the VA's West Wing incinerator unit. Contained damage, no casualties. It was designed to look like an electrical fault. The second blast, 30 minutes later, shut down the entire power grid for 3 square blocks. Inside the hospital, backup systems kicked on. Generators, emergency lights, lockdowns, doors sealed, floors isolated. It wasn't a malfunction. It was a quarantine. Rix was already moving. He and Layla had returned to the VA under aliases 2 hours earlier, looking for a paper trail. The blood records were only half the story. Somewhere in the hospital's ancient analog archive, buried in physical files too outdated for digital logging, was the original chain of custody transfer for Cole Vanden. Someone had to have signed for him. Someone who wasn't supposed to. They were in sub-basement level 2 when the lights died. The corridor went black, then red. Emergency backup strobes flared to life, pulsing like a heartbeat. Ricks crouched low, pulling Layla behind a stack of supply crates as a mechanized hum began to echo down the hall. "Motion scanners," he muttered. "Security bots? Worse, medical lockdown units, last resort, deployed during biohazard breaches." "But this isn't biohazard," she said. "No," Ricks said. "It's a containment op. They think we found something." From the far corridor came the whir of synthetic wheels and hydraulic limbs. Then the voice, genderless, calm, cruel. "Unauthorized personnel detected. Please remain still for extraction and compliance verification." A mechanical hiss. Layla's hand found the bone-hilted knife strapped to her thigh. "We can't go loud here," Ricks whispered. "Too close to civilian patients." Layla nodded, scanning the hallway. "Maintenance shafts?" Ricks tapped the wall once. 7 meters, panels behind compressed oxygen storage. We cut the feed, pry the panel, drop into plumbing tunnels. "We've got 90 seconds, she said. "Then we move." They ran fast and low, bypassing the patrol unit with seconds to spare. The shaft opened with effort. They dropped into wet, rusted pipes that snaked beneath the hospital like diseased veins. In the dark, Ricks's voice was tight. "They want to smoke us out, stage an incident, then disappear the remains." "I've seen it before," Layla said, "on the other side, during field ops in Nigeria. When something needed to be erased, the cover story always came first. The casualties came after." They crawled for 30 meters until they found the secondary exit into the records annex, a zone no one had used in over a decade. The walls were yellowed with age. The shelves were bent with the weight of time. Mold crept at the edges of old training manuals and inactive personnel files. And in the back corner, under 2 decades of dust and a broken fax machine, they found it. The hard file log for special asset transfers, 2015-2018. Ricks flipped through the thick binder, pages stiff with age and neglect. Layla pointed. "There, February 28, 2016. Site redacted. Recipient, CV." "And look at the sender," Ricks said, a name scrawled in sharp, almost manic penmanship. "Dr. Adrian Kroll, Bioethics Oversight, DoD Division 17. He underlined the location code, MN54ID Raven. ID, Layla murmured. "Idaho." "And Raven's the name of the site," Ricks confirmed. "Off-grid facility. They used to run gene therapy tests under DARPA, but the funding was pulled after a whistleblower died mid-testimony." "Let me guess," she said. "No one could prove foul play." "Because everyone who could disappeared." Then a sound behind them, too soft for a bot, too human to ignore. Ricks spun, weapon drawn. But it wasn't an attacker. It was a janitor, old, hunched, eyes full of something that looked a lot like recognition. "You're him," the man said. "From Mali, from the Black File." Ricks stepped forward, tense. "Who are you?" The man shook his head. "They don't let me say any more, but I remember faces. They used to call me in to take blood for him, the one who didn't bleed right." "Cole Vanden." The man shivered. "He talked to walls, talked to machines, said the kill orders were just the first tests." "What tests?" Layla asked. The man's lips cracked. "Mind resilience, bio-override, conditioning under neurological duress." He looked at them both, eyes wet. He wasn't the only one. A pulse detonated through the building, a power surge. Lights cut again. The janitor froze. "They're coming," he whispered. "Who?" But he was already backing into the shadows. Ricks pulled Layla toward the access door. "We have what we need." Behind them, the walls buzzed. From the intercoms came a new voice, male, calm, precise, Cole Vanden. "Donovan, Layla, you're not patients anymore, you're variables. And my job is to close the experiment." They burst into the stairwell. Sirens screamed. Metal barriers dropped behind them like jaws closing. They reached the ambulance dock, now sealed with emergency shutters. Layla hotwired a maintenance cart. Rix scanned for breach points. North dock is glass reinforced. If we can overload the sprinkler pipe. A flash grenade dropped from above. No sound. Just white. Then pain. Rix's ears rang as he dragged Layla into the crawlspace beneath the dock ramp. Shadows moved above. Armored boots. Tactical. Quiet. Not standard hospital security. They wore black. No insignia. Only one thing in common. A patch on their shoulder, an eye surrounded by 4 digits. E724. Rix raised his stolen pistol. Layla had the knife. 1 shot. 1 scream. Then they were running again. 30 minutes later, they escaped through the burn unit's underground vent system into the winter dark city. Blood on Layla's collar. Smoke in Rix's lungs. They didn't speak until they reached the safe house. There, in the silence, Rix opened a fresh map, drew a circle around a mountain range in Idaho. Marked it Raven. He looked at Layla. "You still want out?" he asked. She met his eyes, calm and fierce. "You asked me once why I'm helping you," she said. "Here's the real answer, because I remember what Carver's body looked like when we found him. And I think you were supposed to die next to him." Rix nodded once, then drew one final word under the target. War. The plane was borrowed. Twin prop, low profile, with military DNA under a civilian shell, just enough burn in the logs to keep Homeland Security out of it, just enough altitude to avoid satellite tracking. Layla flew, Rix navigated. Neither spoke much. Below them, the snow-scraped spine of Idaho stretched westward like a scar across the American frontier. White peaks, cold valleys, and, somewhere hidden inside it all, a black site called Raven, the kind of place designed to never exist. They landed 3 clicks from the coordinates at an abandoned forest airstrip. No one greeted them. No one needed to. Because the real reception would be deeper in, wired to motion sensors, IR tripwires, and something worse, predictive movement AI, the kind that learns your patterns before you move. "Whatever's in Raven," Rix muttered, tightening the strap on his rifle sling. "They're spending a hell of a lot to protect it." "They're not protecting," Layla replied, eyes sharp. "They're containing." They hiked through timber and snow for 2 hours, speaking only in hand signals. The forest was too quiet, no birds, no deer, just silence, as if something had taught the ecosystem to fear this place. Then they found it. Raven wasn't a compound. It wasn't even above ground. It was a fracture in the earth, disguised as a mining operation, surrounded by derelict equipment and overgrowth. But the elevator still worked, barely, and beneath the surface was a facility carved into the bedrock. Reinforced steel, vacuum-sealed doors, surveillance cameras with cracked lenses and blinking red lights. Dead, but watching anyway. It smelled of metal and ghosts. They moved through tunnels that branched like arteries, passing old med bays and empty cells, each room a scar, each wall tagged with numbers and initials. Rix paused at one door, his breath fogging. On the wall was a name etched into the metal with something sharp. D. Rix. Observation only. He didn't touch it. Layla found a terminal still drawing power from a backup generator. She bypassed the boot protocols. The screen flickered to life, bathing the room in blue. A login prompt appeared. Rix typed. User, CV Alpha Pass, 724 Sentinel. It worked. Hundreds of files unlocked. Videos, logs, voice memos, scans of handwritten pages. And at the center of it all, a master directory labeled Devil's Ledger. Layla opened it. The screen flooded with names. Not just military, civilians, scientists, politicians, contractors, and next to each, one of 3 statuses: active, compromised, or excised. Some were marked with E7V strain types. Others had notes like resistance tested, failed, or partial compliance under stress. This is a kill list, Layla said, voice low. Or worse, an inventory. Here, Rix scrolled until he found what he was looking for. Cole Vanden, Alpha Class Subject. Status, Contingency, Cognitive Drift, 17%. Physical Stability, 94%. Psychological Override, in progress. Contingency? He whispered. Layla clicked the attached file. A video feed played. Date stamped 1 month prior. Cole Vanden, sitting upright in a chair bolted to the floor, IV lines in both arms, scars across his scalp, but his eyes, calm, aware, predatory. He looked into the camera. My name is Cole Vanden. This message is for Donovan Ricks. If you're seeing this, the override failed, and you're coming for me. Ricks stepped back. Cole continued, smiling faintly. I volunteered, Donovan. You know what that means. You trained us. You broke us. You told us to never forget the mission, even if the mission forgot us. But you forgot one thing. I remember everything. Layla paused the video. Override? Mind erasure protocol. Total psychological reprogramming, Ricks muttered. They were trying to strip his identity, rebuild him as a clean weapon. But he resisted. Ricks nodded slowly. 17% drift. It means parts of him survived. Layla clicked on another file. Surveillance logs from the Mali operation. One audio transcript played over white noise. Carver's voice, panicked, low. Signal's wrong, man. It's not ours. Vanden's not part of the exfil. He's watching us. And another voice, unfiltered, precise. Maintain positions. Test is live. Then silence. Then screaming. Then static. Ricks killed the audio. His jaw clenched so tight it cracked. They set us up. The whole mission was an experiment. We were test variables. And Cole was the control, Layla added, sent to monitor how we reacted under real conditions. He didn't come to save us, Ricks said. He came to watch us die. A rumble shook the floor beneath them. Warning lights flickered red. Then the facility's intercom crackled to life. Cole's voice again. I told them the override wouldn't work. I told them you'd find me. But you're too late now. You're not coming to stop the program, Donovan. You're coming to finish it. Alarms blared. Doors slammed. Ricks grabbed Layla's arm, dragging her out as the first explosion rocked the hallway behind them. Charges detonated along the structural seams. Self-destruct, he growled. He's purging the site. Then why warn us? Because he wants us alive. Why? Another blast. This one closer. Metal tore from concrete. Fire curled from the vents. And through it all, Cole's final message played on every screen, repeating in perfect clarity, every system you ever trusted, Donovan, they turned you into me. Now let's see what you'll do when they come to clean you up. They escaped through a collapsed access tunnel, lungs full of smoke, ribs bruised, coughing blood. The snow outside had turned to ash-flecked sludge. They didn't stop moving, not until dawn, not until they reached the edge of a highway, flagged down a stolen truck, and drove in silence for hours. Finally, Layla broke it. There's no more question what this is now, she said. It's not an experiment anymore. It's a war program. Ricks nodded slowly. And every name in that ledger? He said. Targets, test cases, field assets, anyone who saw too much or could be reactivated. Layla looked at him, the question in her eyes sharp and unspoken. What about you? He answered, without blinking. I trained half the men on that list. That means I know how to break the other half. And Cole? Ricks turned toward the road, his voice like shrapnel. He's not a man anymore. He's the end of the playbook. They didn't make it to Chicago. The truck they'd stolen had a LoJack, buried beneath the undercarriage, linked to a Federal Fleet database. Ricks had checked it, but not deep enough. The tech was newer than he'd expected, meant for long hauls, satellite quiet, but not dead. They crossed into Ohio before the hit came. It was quiet at first. A van tailing too close. A truck that changed lanes when they did. Then, outside Toledo, at a rest stop carved into flatland and fog, They were boxed in. 2 black SUVs. A rental sedan with tags registered to a shell company Rix recognized from the Mali debrief folder. Red Arrow Logistics. Another name for the same machine. By the time the first shot rang out, Rix had already pushed Layla through the back door of the diner and into the alley behind it. 3 rounds hit the wall inches from her head. He returned fire once, dropped a man coming out of the sedan. No insignia, no voice. Just a face painted in apathy and the telltale E724 patch on his shoulder. "They're not trying to take us," Rix growled as they sprinted toward the woods. "No," Layla said, breath ragged. "They're trying to erase us." They vanished into the underbrush, Rix moving silent and lethal, Layla 1 pace behind, despite the gash bleeding down her arm. The winter trees shielded them, but didn't protect. Drones buzzed overhead. Heat sensors. Pattern recognition. This wasn't a manhunt. It was a protocol. They reached an abandoned church miles from the nearest paved road. Weather-beaten, gutted by fire. Half of it collapsed. "This place safe?" Layla asked. "No," Rix said, "but it's empty, which is better than safe." Inside, Rix barricaded the door with broken pews while Layla peeled off her jacket. Blood soaked her sleeve. Deep. Too deep. He didn't ask, just ripped open a med kit from his bug-out bag and set to work. She didn't scream when he stitched her. Barely flinched. "That's the second time you've had to patch me up like this," she said. He glanced at her. "First time didn't take." "That was 6 years ago. Dust storm outside the walls of Bamako. You had a busted knee, and I had a morphine syringe I wasn't cleared to use. You weren't even supposed to be there." She smiled weakly. "Neither were you." A long silence. Rix finished stitching, then sat back. "You still want out?" he asked. "I never wanted out," she said. "I wanted the truth. I just didn't know it would come wrapped in this much blood." Rix looked down at his hands, scarred, calloused, shaking now. "We're ghosts, Layla. Burned and buried. There's no going back." She leaned forward. "Then we go through." Night fell hard. They slept in shifts, each waking to the sound of wind and distant engine hum. By dawn, Rix had a new plan, not for escape, but for signal. He needed to draw Cole out, to force the next move, to push the program into the open. That meant broadcasting the Devil's Ledger, the redacted file they'd pulled from Raven, onto 3 darknet military forums and 1 stolen DoD server still running on a Cold War failsafe. "Won't they trace it?" Layla asked. "They will," Rix replied. "That's the point." 6 hours later, they hit a gas station in Indiana for supplies. 40 minutes after that, a flag pinged in a private server in Zurich. 12 minutes after that, a silent trigger activated a program called Perseus Echo, and Cole Vanden woke up. They saw him again that night. Not in the flesh. On a screen, in a hotel just outside St. Louis, Rix booted up an old decrypted channel, one used only by Alpha-class operatives for black code coordination. And there he was, Cole Vanden, wearing civilian clothes, sitting in a dark room lit only by a static-filled monitor, eyes burning cold. "You've made your choice, Donovan," he said. "Now I've made mine. There will be no extraction. There will be no survivors." Then the feed went dead, but not before GPS metadata bled through the unsecured port. Rix ran the trace. His face went pale. Location? Outside Nashville. Layla leaned over his shoulder. "What's there?" He looked at her. "The first test site. They reached it at 3:17 a.m. A farmhouse, long abandoned, fields wrapped in government fencing with signs that read, 'Environmental Hazard, Entry Prohibited.' But Rix knew the layout. He'd trained here. Below the farmhouse was a mock urban environment built into a cavern. Test Ground Zero for Echo Protocol, where Cole had been conditioned, where others had died, and where the real program began. They descended through a concealed cellar door. lit only by Layla's flashlight and Rix's memory. Everything was still. Too still. Then the lights came on. Fluorescent. Blinding. And the voice echoed through every speaker. Cole again. You remember this place, don't you? Where they taught us fear was just a function of time. I watched your file, Donovan. You always hesitated just before the kill. Let's see if you still do. Doors opened. Figures stepped out. Other assets. Not fully human, not fully broken. Some limped, some twitched. All wore the same patch. E724. Layla raised her gun. Rix said nothing. The lights cut again, and all hell broke loose. The fight was brutal. No tactics, no mercy, just survival. Rix dropped the first two with double taps to the head, but the third kept coming even after two center mass hits. Synthetic muscle, pseudo-neural inhibitors, bio-override. Layla stabbed one through the throat, only for it to pull the blade out and slam her against the wall. Rix tackled it, dislocated its jaw with a chair leg, then crushed its skull with his boot. The rest came in waves. They fought through blood, bone, and broken air, until the last one fell, and silence returned, except not complete, because from the far end of the chamber a door slid open, and Cole stood there, alive, whole, wearing black, eyes bright, a calm smile on his face. No more simulations, he said. Just you and me. Let's see what they really built. The silence between them was not empty. It was charged. Years of secrets, lies, and blood humming in the distance between Donovan Rix and Cole Vanden. Two soldiers cut from the same fabric, stitched back together by different hands. One made to forget, the other forced to remember. Cole stood calm in the doorway of the training chamber, his black shirt soaked with the spray of blood from the others Rix had just put down. None of it seemed to touch him. You should have died in Mali, he said softly. Rix didn't flinch. So should you. A faint smile tugged at Cole's mouth. I did. But dying isn't what it used to be. Layla stepped up beside Rix, breathing hard, a cut across her brow weeping into her eye. She raised her pistol without a word. Cole's eyes flicked to her. You're still alive. Impressive. Last time I saw you, your heart rate was 190 and climbing. You were watching from the drone feed, she said. You let Carver bleed out. Cole tilted his head. He failed the threshold test. You didn't. Rix's hand came up, stopped Layla cold. Don't give him what he wants, he said. He's not here to fight. He's here to measure. Cole took a step forward. Always were the smart one, Don. That's why they tagged you for the next phase. Not E7V, something cleaner. Faster, no resistance needed. Rix stared. They made you an offer. Cole's smile faded. They made me a condition. You think they only tested drugs and data in that black site? They tested ideology. Purpose. They broke men just to see how long it would take to rebuild them with different truths. What's the truth now? Rix asked. Cole's gaze darkened. That there's no room for free variables. The future's not uncertain anymore. It's engineered. He turned and walked back through the open door. Rix hesitated for a second, then followed. Layla right behind. They entered what looked like a control room, walls lined with old CRT monitors and newer digital terminals, tangled cables, scorched screens. One wall had a giant two-way mirror, now cracked and spider-webbed. Behind it, a steel chair bolted to the ground. The original override station. This was where they stripped Cole Vanden down and rebuilt him with wires and whispers, where his mind had been reprogrammed, loop by loop, until something else opened its eyes. The terminals were still active, and one was still recording. Cole gestured to it. That's the last transmission. Carver's real final words, not what she told you. Layla's breath caught. Rix stepped to the monitor, hit the playback. The screen flickered. A drone's eye view of the village in Mali. Dust rising, infrared outlines of soldiers moving through alleys. Then Carver's voice. We're boxed in. Signal didn't go through. That bastard Vanden's not answering. Rix, if you hear this, it wasn't just a mission. They knew. They knew and they sent us anyway. They left us. Don't let them erase us. Then silence, then gunfire, then static. Rix stared at the screen. Layla didn't speak. She couldn't. He turned slowly toward her. You said he told you the signal was wrong. I lied, she whispered. I couldn't. You were so far gone. You needed something. I thought I was giving you peace. Cole watched, emotionless. She gave you fiction, because truth doesn't heal. It burns. Rix turned toward him. What do you want from me? I want you to see what I saw. Cole walked to a terminal, entered a code. A hidden feed unlocked. It showed a warehouse in DC live. Dozens of stretchers, men and women strapped down, monitored, coded. Some moaning, some still. One screen zoomed in on a young Marine. E7V blood tag, tremors under his skin. They're accelerating the trials, Cole said. They plan to roll out field deployment next quarter. No oversight, no names. Where is this? Layla asked. A mile from your hospital. Rix watched in silence, the muscles in his jaw tight. They built a machine to replace warfighters, Cole said. Then they trained the machine to clean itself. You're not a liability anymore, Rix. You're an obsolete model they still need to scrub. Rix looked him dead in the eye. Then why am I still alive? Because I didn't pull the trigger, Cole said. Because I remember what you were before the program, before the files, before we were assets. Rix's voice came low. Gravel. I remember what you were too. Cole nodded once. A good man, before they turned me into a mirror. A high-pitched ping echoed from one of the monitors. Layla checked it. Her face went pale. They're here. 4 inbound signals. Fast. Military fast. QRF with orders to eliminate everyone inside. Cole sighed. You were the bait, just like I was once. Rix stepped forward. How do we shut it down? Cole looked him in the eye. You expose it. You broadcast the ledger, the whole thing. Not just the names, the footage, the trials, the deaths. They'll kill everyone tied to it. They already are. Rix stared at him. Cole pulled a chip from his jacket, small, black, data-rich. This holds the full archive, unredacted, from Raven to Perseus Echo, including their next target set. Rix took it. Layla looked at Cole. What about you? He smiled faintly. I don't get out. I don't deserve to. But you do. She stepped forward, touched his shoulder. I don't forgive you, but I see you now. His eyes softened for a second. Then the walls trembled. A missile strike hit the ground above. The extraction was denied. Rix and Layla ran, following a tunnel Cole opened with a manual override. Behind them, fire engulfed the chamber. Cole stood in the center of it, watching them go, then turned back toward the flame. No words, no scream, just acceptance. At sunrise, Rix and Layla reached a safe point. A transmission node buried in the Appalachian foothills. Rix uploaded the file. The Devil's Ledger sent it to every journalist, whistleblower, intel watchdog, and black market server they could reach. Then they walked away. No home to go to, no country left to serve. But the truth was out. And somewhere, in a hospital bed, a patient whispered Carver's last real words, "Don't let them erase us." The first journalist to run the story was found dead within 24 hours. Car crash. Single vehicle. Rural road. No skid marks. The second vanished en route to a live interview with a whistleblower defense network. The third never even opened the file. His publication killed it before it hit the server, then issued a polite retraction for an article that never ran. The Devil's Ledger had been released, but the system it tried to expose had already adapted, and Rix knew it. They were off-grid now, camped in a no-service zone between Virginia and Kentucky. Coal country, all broken ridgelines and dead-eyed towns where the mail stopped coming years ago, and the law wore old boots and unmarked vests. A woman named Darla gave them shelter. 50, gray-streaked hair, back stiff from years in the Corps. She didn't ask questions. She'd seen the kind of ghosts that walked with men like Ricks. They stayed in the barn, no electronics, no signal, just silence, old tools, and the weight of everything they'd uncovered, and everything they still hadn't. "He's not dead," Layla said quietly one night, her voice just above the crickets. "Cole, you know that, right?" Ricks didn't respond. She turned to him. "That chamber was rigged, yes, but he could have escaped the same way we did. He had access. Hell, he built the exits." Ricks nodded once, slowly. "I know. Then why hasn't he come?" "Because now he wants us to see the world try to ignore the truth. He wants us to feel how deep the rot goes. Just like he did." Layla's eyes burned in the dark. "That's not justice. That's torment." Ricks looked away. To him, they're the same. A week later, a dead drop came in. No return address, no markings. Just a hard drive, wrapped in Kevlar, tucked in a rusted ammo can near the edge of Darla's property. Inside, footage, surveillance, documents, and a single audio file titled Redacted Ur3, Debrief, Vanden Crossfire. Ricks played it. Cole's voice, measured, calm. "I'm not your enemy anymore. I'm your proof. But proof doesn't matter in a world built on amnesia." Raven wasn't the only site. There's one more. Still active, still running trials. Codename, No Man's Land. A map loaded with the file. Coordinates pointed to the Arctic Circle, Greenland, an old NATO radar station, decommissioned publicly but still warm in black budget documents. Ricks leaned over the map, pulse steady, eyes burning. "They moved it," he said. "They expanded it," Layla corrected, scanning the infrastructure. "This isn't an op center. It's a manufacturing hub. Look, containment cells, biolabs, drone relay stations." And then she paused. Zoomed in on a section tagged F2. Inside, human test logs. Active subjects, 11. 10 of them listed only by initials. The 11th, Ricks, D. Status, Standby Override. Key, live. Ricks sat back, hands shaking. "They've cloned your profile," Layla whispered. "They're building new soldiers based on your cognitive and physical signature. That's why Cole let us go. He wanted us to see this. Ricks didn't speak for a long time, then we burn it." They flew under storm cover, military transport refitted by a contact Darla had in Finland. No transponder, no signal, just fuel, silence, and cold so deep it felt ancient. They landed on a glacier at dawn, wind screaming, temperature in the -30s. No GPS, no help. Just two ghosts stepping into the mouth of something vast and hidden. No Man's Land wasn't marked by buildings or fences. It was buried. A facility encased in ice, 30 meters down, accessed by a single vertical shaft hidden beneath what looked like a collapsed satellite dish. They found the hatch, burned through it, dropped in. Inside, warmth, light, and the smell of chemicals and control. Ricks moved with purpose. Layla was already hacking the first node. "I'll loop the internal feeds for 20 minutes, she said. "After that they'll reinitialize and lock us out." "That's all I need," he said. They moved fast, cleared the first 2 levels, knocked out guards with non-lethal force, Layla's choice, not his. "This isn't about murder," she said. "Not yet," Ricks replied. Then they hit F2, and saw them. Rows of sealed cryo chambers, each one labeled. Inside, bodies in suspended animation, wearing tactical suits, arms bulked with enhanced muscle strands, pupils fluttering under closed lids. 10 were unfamiliar. The 11th was him. A perfect replica. Donovan Ricks, built to kill. Sleep deep, but seconds from activation. A biometric panel flashed green as they approached. Standby mode, active. Initiate wake cycle? Ricks stared at himself. His clone. Layla's voice was barely a whisper. "You were right. You were never supposed to walk out of Mali. This was the plan all along. Clean the slate, keep the design. He touched the glass. Cold, smooth, his face mirrored back, expression blank. Then he turned to Layla. Blow it. All of it. She planted the charges on the cryo-racks, the backup servers, the override control core. Each one synced to a dead man's switch in Rick's hand. As they moved to the exit tunnel, alarms blared. Containment breach detected. Ricks hit the manual detonation countdown. 3 minutes, then movement. A door behind them opened, not from inside, from the far end of the chamber. And Cole Vanden stepped through. Still alive. Still smiling. Still the ghost that wouldn't die. The blast countdown ticked under 3 minutes. C4 wired to every structural seam in no man's land, set to bury the entire facility beneath the Greenland ice shelf. And then he walked in. Cole Vanden, no armor, no weapon. Just him, quiet, alive, eyes burning behind frost-flecked lashes. The kind of alive that meant he'd never really left, never intended to. Ricks lifted his sidearm, aimed center mass. "Don't," Cole said. The word stopped him. Not because it was a command, but because of the voice behind it. Layla. She stepped forward between them, gun raised, eyes flicking between both men. 3 minutes, she said. Then this place goes dark forever. If you've got something to say it now. Cole didn't flinch. You made it further than I thought you would, Donovan. You rigged the road to kill us, Ricks replied coldly. Why didn't you pull the trigger? I wanted you to understand, Cole said. What they made me into. What they're still making. He nodded behind Ricks, toward the cryo chambers, still lit, slowly frosting over. Those aren't copies, he said. They're improvements. Faster reaction time, shorter moral latency. No hesitation, no empathy, no soul, Rick said. No need, Cole countered. They don't need men anymore, just weapons that bleed and obey. You help them. Cole's smile died. I survived them. That's not the same thing. Behind them, a siren began to wail. Evac protocol initiated. The system was trying to save itself, not them. You still don't get it, Cole said. They were never after you. You were the control group. But me? I was the mistake that worked too well. And now, you're here to wipe it all away. That's the idea, Rick said, thumbing the dead man's trigger. 3 minutes and counting. But then Cole stepped forward, slow and deliberate, reaching into his jacket. Ricks's weapon tracked him the whole time. Cole pulled out a metal drive, small, encrypted, thumb-sized. What's that? Layla asked. Cole held it up, offering it to Ricks. It's every iteration, every command chain, every override protocol, from Mali to here, including your file. Ricks didn't move. Why give it to me? Cole's expression darkened. Because the people who built this don't care that we're dying down here. They'll just find another cave, another name, another generation to break. This isn't about ending me. It's about burning the whole architecture. You could have done that yourself. I wasn't supposed to make it this far, Cole said, but you did. You and her. His eyes flicked to Layla. You were never a test subject. You were a correction, a counterbalance in case he failed the threshold, a moral tether. She stepped back slightly, shaken. You're lying. Cole smiled sadly. I wish I was, but even your compassion was part of the equation. Ricks's voice was steel. You expect me to thank you for this? I expect you to finish what I couldn't. Ricks took the drive. The countdown ticked. 01:22. Come with us, Layla said softly. Cole turned away. No. I stay. There's another way, she insisted. You said you weren't their weapon anymore. I'm not, he said, then looked at Ricks. But I am yours. They ran, back up through the service shaft, each breath a hammer blow in their lungs, each second a fuse burning toward oblivion. As they reached the surface hatch, Ricks turned one last time. Below, Cole stood in the center of the chamber, staring at the clones. The unfinished weapons, the future he was made to design. Then the steel doors slammed shut. Rix hit the detonator. The explosion didn't echo. It swallowed. Ice lifted. The glacier cracked. A bloom of white fire expanded beneath the earth, and then was gone. Silent. Total. The kind of erasure designed not to make a statement, but to leave nothing behind. They watched it collapse from a ridge, breath frosting in the Arctic air. Layla leaned into Rix, her voice barely audible. "Do you think it's over?" He shook his head. "Nothing like this ever ends. But someone has to keep the page blank." 3 months later, Nairobi, Kenya. A medical outpost near the Somali border. Hot, sparse, real. Layla worked under an alias. No phone, no tech, just gauze and grit. She treated a young boy with shrapnel in his thigh, sat beside an old woman whose husband vanished in an American raid that never made headlines, slept little, smiled less. But some nights, she still dreamed of ice and blood and the sound of Rix whispering, "We either become ghosts, or we bury them." Then one evening, as the sun dropped low behind the hills, a patient arrived, brought in by villagers who spoke in hushed tones. White burned across the chest, muttering in English. Layla stepped into the room, heart hammering. The man grabbed her wrist with surprising strength, pulled her close, and whispered, "Tell Layla." The fire still burns. Her breath caught. He let go. Eyes closed. Flatline. She stood there for a long time, hand trembling. And then, without a word, she turned and walked outside into the setting sun. Eyes dry, back straight, soul heavy, but alive.